in his studios there is Roger Stone, former head of the Trump campaign, worked in 5 administrations, and of course is a best-selling author. Roger, thanks for joining us.
Alex, great to be here.
Well, start rolling with it. You're the expert on this. Let's announce who we believe is the so-called mole who reported nothing.
Well, first of all, let's stop and reflect for a moment on the stunning news that the FBI planted a spy inside the presidential campaign of the Republican candidate for president. This is a tip of the iceberg of the larger scandal regarding the use of the state capacity for surveillance and authority for surveillance, and through the use of phony FISA warrants. This next shoe to drop, the FBI plant inside the Trump campaign, is stunning news. Now, there's a guessing game going on in official Washington as to who the operative is. I've examined all of the evidence and discussed the matter with colleagues, and I believe that it is most likely that the deep mole is Steph Halper. Now, who is Steph Halper? First of all, he is the son-in-law of legendary Bush neocon operative Ray Kleins. Steph Halper was the chief foreign policy advisor to presidential candidate George H.W. Bush when he ran against Ronald Reagan in 1980. His wife, his father-in-law, and he have all extremely deep ties to the deep state, to the CIA, to the National Security Council, and to that entire intelligence.
And I should add, he's the one we know with 3 different people out of the blue saying, let me fly you here to discuss Russia. Are you a Russian operative? You know anything about Russians?
Now, I actually have met Steph Halper because former NRA President David Keene had a floating crap game at his home, and I was sometimes a tender. Halper was a very good poker player. He is a duplicitous, very smart, and deeply, deeply committed to the globalist agenda. He has an effacing kind of schlub personality that I think really hides a steel trap mind and a capacity for exactly this type of activity.
So clearly this man is a psychotic.
Well, he is very, very bright. He's very ambitious. He was appointed to high positions in both the Bush and Reagan administrations. He was deeply committed to the one world agenda of the Bushes.
We have a photo of him here, unclothed, classified. We're releasing now. Extremely handsome, I should add.
Well, look, he's a very self-effacing, kind of likable guy.
I'm being sarcastic. We're showing the image of a naked mole right now. That's a joke. Sorry, Roger. I can't help it.
That's okay. But this stunning news, Alex, shows that their whole phony edifice is starting to crumble. Look, they call me a dirty trickster. The Russian collusion hoax, which is covering up the biggest assault on our civil liberties in American history, the largest scandal in American history. Now, that's the biggest dirty trick of all time. And, you know, they're now getting called on it. This is just another major piece of evidence. The FBI penetrating Donald Trump's campaign, that's outrageous. Isn't that what they sent Nixon down for allegedly wiretapping the opposition? In this case, it's even worse because they've used the authority and the capability of the state, where Nixon's bungled job was a private job.
By the way, it's funny you bring that up. Who was it I saw on Friday made this point that Trump wants to expose the Iran deal because it's a bad deal, but also because reportedly hundreds of millions got paid to Obama and others, and we know they were big into that. Well, now the Iranian government, it's on Infowars.com, I forgot to tell the crew, pull it up. The Iranian Press TV, this is the official channel. I don't just believe it if I see it on CNN. Of course, it wasn't on CNN. It was on Infowars.com. I saw it in a Zero Hedge article. I went to Press TV. I should have started the whole show with this. And the mullah, the Ayatollah of rock and roll and Jack and Cola, you know, I mean, my God, keep your wheels spinning and your beavers grinning. This guy says we paid off the Obama administration hundreds of millions, and if you don't roll over, we'll release who we paid off. God, is Trump a genius or what? Please release it. Please release it. No, that's the Wall Street Journal. FBI had a mole in the Trump campaign. It's on Infowars.com. It's top story. Right before we went live, I forgot to tell you guys, there's a bunch of articles on it, but it's all press TV, and then it got picked up. Steve Watson wrote about it, but also the first people were the amazing Tyler Durgan over at the Zero Hedge. Ladies and gentlemen, drum roll, please. We'll go to break in a minute, come back with this, because I forgot to even have that in my stack. I'm so punch drunk with all the news. The Iranian government on press TV, that's their outlet, said, we will expose you with blackmail payments if you don't roll over. Is that not the most desperate, insane behavior we've ever seen? There it is. Iran threatens to expose U.S. diplomats who took bribes to create nuclear deal. Red states got it too. Good Lord, Roger. This is spectacular. What do you make of this?
Maybe it was a rebate. My guess is it was a rebate.
Well, if I got millions of dollars from the Iranians to let them have nukes, I hope I get hung up by my toenails and beaten to death. I mean, that's why they're trying to call us traitors. Everybody knows we're Americans. We're capitalists. We are the country. We're not the ones taking foreign money, Roger.
No, in fact, the reason that the deep state is fighting so ferociously is because they know they're the ones who face jail sentences. They're the ones who face disgrace. They're the ones who have violated the law. They are the ones who have engaged in treason. That's why they must accuse us of these very crimes and destroy us, because it's us or them. And they realize that. And their whole phony facade is crumbling before our very eyes.
Meanwhile, there may be an end in sight. President Trump's attorney, Rudy Giuliani, tells Fox News that special counsel Robert Mueller told him 2 weeks ago that his Russia investigation could end by September 1st if Mr. Mueller is able to interview the president probably around the 4th of July.
We have not heard from the Mueller camp on this, but regardless of the end date, our next guest sees no criminal evidence against the president. He's Harvard Law professor and author of Trumped Up, still out there, still selling well, Alan Dershowitz. Professor, welcome back.
Thank you so much.
So I watched you yesterday spar with Dan Abrams. I'll tell you what, I felt like I was in my first law class ever. It was awesome. But you didn't really have a chance to talk. We want to give you a chance to talk today.
Thank you.
In particular, you don't have an agenda. You're not going to bat for the president.
No.
But you don't see any criminal intent or action here, and you're getting really concerned for the country.
Yes, and that's why from day one I said no special counsel, no finger-pointing, no criminal prosecution. Let's have an independent, nonpartisan commission looking into this election. This election was not the finest hour. Whether there were infiltrators or spies put into the Republican camp, whether Strzok did have a hatred and an insurance policy, whether there was any cooperation with any Russian sources, we need to get to the truth. And the only way to get to the truth is an independent 9/11 type commission, and we have to prevent it from happening in the future. This election is a model of what should not happen in the future, and a special counsel is the worst way of getting to the truth.
But isn't there congressional oversight right now? I know there are a number of committees on Capitol Hill, largely run by Republicans who
or Democrats.
Right, exactly. But the Republicans are trying to get documents. They say the Department of Justice is not cooperating. The Department of Justice says, yes, we are. We're stuck.
Look, Americans do not trust congressional committees. The majority is partisan, the minority. It's what's good for Republicans, what's good for the Democrats. Nobody asks the question what's good for Americans. And you need a nonpartisan commission of experts, people who really can dig into this, people who really have experience and who don't have an agenda.
Can't the president
finger-pointing.
Can't the president declassify the documents?
He can.
Why doesn't he?
I don't know. He should.
You think he should?
And also this stuff that we hear, oh, don't reveal the name of the informer. You know, that's often the way in which Justice Department hides what they've done.
Sure.
This is not an informer whose life
He's a
is in
73-year-old
jeopardy.
professor. Who's going after him?
Of course. And, you know, both sides have to create much more transparency. Right. We have to find out.
Do you think the president should sit down now that we know there's a potential end date? If they were to sit down maybe in July, then Mueller's telling Giuliani maybe September 1 then could be the
That's a
date.
tactic, and it's a hard one to decide unless you know all the facts. If the president can put this behind him by September 1st, by sitting down in a limited capacity with questions that he can answer, that would be a good thing. But, you know, the Mueller people could then say, oh, based on the questions and the answers,
we need to prolong it.
We need another month,
I want you to hear the new tactic that could be out there. Jonathan Swan brought this up on your show yesterday. Let's listen to what he says Rudy Giuliani might be doing now effectively.
The legal strategy hasn't changed. I mean, Emmett Flood is a quiet, careful lawyer who is doing basically the identical work that Mike Cobb was doing inside the White House. What's changed is the media strategy, which is very significant. Rudy Giuliani's job is not to do substantive, in-the-weeds legal work. His job is to go on TV and attack Robert Mueller and attack the investigation. And what we're seeing is that it's becoming a red and a blue issue, similar to the Clinton impeachment in the 90s. And if that actually happens, we're already seeing the trend lines go in that direction. If that solidifies, that's fantastic for Trump, and he knows that.
Agree?
I agree completely. I think that both Mueller and Comey played into the hands of making this a partisan issue, and Americans do not want to see indictments or impeachments based on partisan issues.
You were in Israel
right.
a week ago today for the opening of the embassy. What did you see?
Well, I was in Gaza, and let me tell you what I saw. People falsely analogize it. Oh, it was a civil rights demonstration. No, it was a lynching. Hamas gave people the addresses of kindergartens and said, go lynch these Israelis. And the Israeli soldiers who I met on the border, they were the good guys.
Stopped them at the fence.
Yes, and they were trying to minimize casualties. Yes, 50 Hamas terrorists were killed, but that's because they were the lynch mob, and we should never analogize them to reasonable demonstrators. Reasonable demonstrators don't come with the addresses of children's kindergartens and hatchets and Molotov cocktails to murder as many people as possible.
Unbelievable.
What an experience, though, for you to be there for the opening of the embassy.
It was a great experience.
Yeah, great to have you here, as always, Professor.
Thank you.
Love your insight.